Welcome, everybody. This is Money Talks for Providers, presentation of the primary care networks in Burnaby. I think this session we throughout the conversation at the working groups, we came to realize that many folks and the people they're working with are struggling to understand all of the different supports and options that are available to them. Not only in the moment, but obviously things change at a moment's notice. So as we enter into fall, and we've got some fairly good-sized changes coming, and people are going back to work and back to school, we felt it would be valuable to have a session where it could give you some information, arm you and your colleagues with the kind of information and resources that will help you answer those questions. First of all, I did want to acknowledge that we sit collectively and separately on the traditional territories of the Quequitlam, Kaikite, and Coast Salish nations. I hope that covers where everybody is, but certainly the intent is the same. As a presentation of primary care networks, it's being recorded, and this presentation will also be available on the BurnabyCoronavirus.com website at a later date, and also likely on the sites of the folks who are presenting. And we'll also mail it out to you as participants. If you do have questions as the sessions go through, please type them into the question box or the chat box, whichever you choose, and we'll make sure we answer them. We have 3 short presentations. We have with us Billy Sinclair, who's a money skills facilitator from Family Services of Greater Vancouver. And Billy will be speaking about financial coaching, hotline, and food vouchers. We also have Shafano Zaber Jamal and Barb Kalashnikov from Work BC, and they'll be speaking about a fairly wide range of programs and supports that are available through Work BC in Burnaby. And we also have Andrea Lamb, who's a community librarian with Burnaby Public Library. And the resources and the services available at Burnaby Public Library are sometimes seen as a bit of an untouched treasure. There's an awful lot there that folks who have needs or issues around money and employment and other issues can find. So she'll speak to us a bit about that. So again, we'll have 3 presentations, and we'll stop at the end of each one for some conversation. And so I'd like to turn it over to Billy just to start us out.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you everyone for including us and having. I say us, I of course represent collectively the financial empowerment team from Family Services of Greater Vancouver. A lot of people don't know about us, but we do our best to outreach and get the word out there about what we offer. And of course, things have changed in the last few months somewhat, but we still do our best to let people know how to avail themselves of our services. So I'll start with the first topic, which is the financial coaching. We found in our experience as classroom facilitators over about 10 years and a little bit more, that in a classroom, people could only, sort of get so much done, so to speak, because they learned the material, they got new insights, and they wanted to go home and work on them. And sometimes the sessions were 2 or 3, like every Tuesday morning or something, but oftentimes not. We might just be asked in for 1 session. So we were very fortunate to be the recipient of the funding from Prosper Canada, allowing us to begin offering one-to-one coaching. Now, I don't even remember when that started, but it feels like it's been a couple of years now. And we were doing this, of course, in our office, which is at Broadway and Commercial. And through the time of COVID, we've been doing it more by telephone, by Zoom when that works. And just a quick rundown, coaching is whatever the client needs. Oftentimes they might be needing to deal with a debt situation. They might be wanting to have a better handle on their spending. And they might just be worried about things that are going on for them financially. And so coaching has always been very client directed, so that we're able to, as coaches, there's a small team of us, we're the resource often, the resource base to help people find what they're looking for to help them achieve their goals financially. And even right now, we're fairly well booked with coaching sessions, but we would always expand our team if we needed more of us, because most of us are available part-time and on contract. So we are, you know, fitting the coaching sessions in with other work that we're doing. That is the coaching stuff. So the second thing on the second topic was our hotline. Now I am going to screen share if I'm able to do that right now. Let's just give that a try. Yes, I am. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just quickly bring us over to this poster right here. Now, of course, it's a full-size poster. So we created with with Prosper Canada and the City of Vancouver, various funders, what we call the COVID-19 Money Navigator. And it is a little bit like the coaching, except that sometimes it's just very quick needs that people have. And they want a place to call in and find out what's going on with CERB. I'm falling through the cracks. I don't seem to fit their guidelines in any way, shape, or form. And so what is available to me? And so this is our hotline. And I did send this poster over. So if you guys are able to distribute it, that would be lovely. There's our phone number, our email, and our website, so that people can find us. You know, really what we've been working on is just the distribution of the whole concept so that we can get the word out that we are available. And it's a Monday to Friday, the phones are manned, and we have different coaches manning the phones every day. So what happens is the client will call in, it will see if it's a quick reference that the administrator on the phone can answer. And if not, then they are forwarded to one of our navigators, we call them, and the navigators are manning the phones for a number of hours per day. And then if it looks like something that the client would like follow up on, then they're also booked an appointment for coaching. And as it says here, they can book that appointment to create budgets, to help prioritize payments, or to get referrals to other providers and plan for the future. So that is the Money Navigator part. And when we have the opportunity to do a little bit more work, let me see if I can just get that. No, not that one. That one. Yeah, we do actually have a little bit of a PowerPoint. So we have been able to go through this with some of our clients that have, when I say clients, you know, our clients are either the individual or they're the agency. And the agency then will maybe have their own clients in a mom's group, in an employment program or something like that. So we can facilitate a bit more information with the PowerPoint, and we get asked to do that a fair bit with the partners that we already have, and new partners are finding us all the time. And lastly, we were asked about our food vouchers. So as it turns out, we are able to offer small food vouchers. They would, of course, be gift cards to some of the grocery stores for clients in need. So we're very happy to make those available. I think the leadership here has communicated with our administrative assistant, Rocio Vasquez. And so Rocio would be the person that a provider would reach out to see about having a gift card, a grocery gift card for a client in need. So those are the three topics that we were asked to share about and are happy to share about. So if anyone has any questions, I'm here. And if not, I will turn the time back over to Jeff.
Thanks. That's great, Billy, and thanks. And I think there are some questions that come up. You spoke a little bit about, in all three of these, are there eligibility requirements as such for these, for the individuals?
That's a great question, Jeff. And no, there is not. We don't turn anyone away.
So you have, this is really barrier-free. Anyone can come and access it. And you also mentioned, and I think this is really important, that you make these you make these same sorts of resources available to providers as well, other agencies and providers. So if I were a provider, I had a question around the changes to CERB that was looking for some clarification on, and how they might affect somebody's benefits or those pieces, I could call that line. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. And you could, when you're talking to the administrator, just let them know exactly that that's the kind of situation that this is, and they'll probably put you through to one of the navigators, or even Rocio might be able to answer that question for you quickly.
Great. And what about language? I think, as you probably know, in Burnaby, there's over 200 languages spoken. What kind of provisions do you have for languages, or is that something that you usually would kind of rely on the agencies you work with to get them to work?
That's a great question, Jeff. We do typically rely on the agencies, but we are fortunate that we do have some languages in the department. So we have French, we have Spanish, and we have at least 2 or 3 other languages that that would be a question that a provider could maybe call and ask in advance, and then that would be the navigator that that client would be directed to.
Right. So, I mean, in terms of the hotline, nominally, there's not an opportunity. There's no specific hotline or referral to a given language, but there is an opportunity. There may be an opportunity to help with that.
Correct. And you don't have to call the hotline as a provider. You can just call our office. Rocio is still answering the calls, in our regular work hours. So you can always check with her. You could find out, let's say that you had a need for Spanish, or when would be the Spanish speaking individual on the roster, or in what method could I reach the Spanish speaking navigator if maybe their schedule doesn't fit with the client. Let's try and work something out so we can get them the help that they need and the language that they need.
Great. And so, and just lastly on the food vouchers, is again, I know that you said there's no barrier. There must be some level of is there one per customer, or do you work that way, or?
Because Rocio is actually monitoring and managing that program, I'm not 100% sure, but I would have to agree with you, Jeff, that it's a high likelihood that there is some kind of stipulations on the usage of that program. And I think, again, we would probably defer to the agency that is sending the client over, that we'd communicate with them prior to making the gift card available to the client.
That's great. Well, thanks, Billy. That's wonderful. I do, we previously we had done a Money Talks for Seniors with Murray, and he spoke quite a bit about the navigators and the program, as well as other really great information. And I know that the folks who were on the line were really appreciative of it, and really told their friends, and found it to be a fabulous resource. And I know for providers, it's the same sort of thing. Just to know that lifeline to financial support is there, that they can pass along to their clients. It's really great to hear. Thanks for coming along. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting us to join in.
And so next up, we have the folks from WorkBC. And again, WorkBC has a wide range of supports for people who are seeking employment. And a lot of them, I think, as you'll hear from Shafana and from Barb, are things that you may not know existed and are really quite relatively easy to access. So I'll turn it over to Shafana and Barb.
Great, thanks, Jeff. I just want to thank the Primary Care Network for the opportunity. I think, oh, yeah, there we go, great. Mostly, I'm going to talk a little bit about the fact that WorkBC is open for business. We're serving our clients, like most service providers these days, virtually. We are seeing some clients in person, face to face, based on the client's needs, and ultimately just get a hold of one of our offices. If you want to go to the next slide for me, Manny, that would be great. And I think most people are familiar with WorkBC. We are an employment program where we are funded by the federal and provincial government. And ultimately, our goal is to connect people to the labor market. We work with clients as well as businesses. Next slide, please, Manny. As I said, we are serving our clients virtually, and you'll get this information sent out to you in terms of our hours. We have 3 locations in Burnaby, which the physical locations aren't all that relevant these days because we're serving clients all over virtually. We have no drop-in appointments. We have a really limited number of staff in our offices. They're rotating. I think we usually, the most staff that we have in our office is probably 3. So we're really slowly looking at going back to there being any more service than what we're providing right now, which is, like I said, clients with urgent needs, and other than that, virtually. The next slide, please, Manny. So this is a list of our locations. One of the things that I also wanted to touch on, Jeff, you had mentioned language capacity. So we have partners in our Work BC program. Mosaic is our partner, and we have access to interpretation services as well as our staff through the 3 locations. I think there's probably about 15 different languages that throughout our offices are spoken. So we can usually facilitate referrals if you have clients that need a particular language. We can usually support the client and the service provider by connecting you to the right person. And what I would suggest is that I can provide a list to service providers of specific contact people that speak specific languages, but I'll only do that based on your request for that information. And the next slide, please, Manny. So I'm going to hand it over to Shafana. Shafana is going to get into the nitty-gritty around the financial supports. And our program is very much based on eligibility. And the services that Shafana is going to talk about are services that are available for registered Work BC clients. So I will hand it over to you, Shafana. Thanks.
Thank you, Barb.
You bet.
Okay, so basic eligibility. So in order to be eligible for Work BC Employment Services, again, you have to be a BC resident or provide proof of identity, meet the criteria for unemployed or precariously employed. Precariously employed meaning that someone might have a job that has an end date, that they're working on a contract job, or it might be a casual position or unreliable hours, so that type of thing. So if someone is precariously employed, then we are able to have them join with Work BC. Of course, you have to be legally eligible to work in BC, be seeking employment, and of course be assessed as requiring services to successfully achieve employment. So once the basic eligibility is determined and client would like to actively work with an employment counselor to find work, then what we ask them to do is apply online at apply.workbc.ca, and they need to create an OES account and choose the catchment that they're interested in working with. So as Barb mentioned, we have 3 Burnaby offices, so they can choose which of the offices they'd like to work with. And then someone from our admin team will reach out in about 48 to 72 hours later and call the individual to make an appointment for them to talk to a counselor, an employment counselor. So first I'm going to talk a little bit about financial services and financial supports that are eligible, and then I'll get into a little bit about the different interventions that we can refer out to depending on what the client's goals are and what we learned from the client that will help us move them forward. So in terms of financial supports, once clients are actively working with an employment counselor to job search, we are able to provide them with transportation support. So if they're looking for bus tickets, if they're planning to go in person to meet with employers or make connections, or if they have an interview and they can provide to us the details of the company name and the position that they applied for, we are able to provide them transportation supports. We do ask that clients need to document their job search, and they do need to provide this information to us before transportation supports can be provided, as the government has become quite strict now. If we see that the job search contains applications that are being sent online and they're asking for transportation supports, we might question that. So they really have to prove and show us that they need the supports in order for us to provide them. If clients are in need of clothing for interviews, we can make referrals for them. For the women, we usually send them to Dress for Success, which is a really, really great place for women to go. They get a really nice outfit and they make them look really, really good for interviews. We have some resources for the men as well that we can send them to. In terms of personal grooming and hygiene, if we can see that the client is in need of a haircut and has no means financially to get this done, we are able to, in some cases, provide them a haircut gift card to get this done. But again, it's based on a need and not really a want. Once client finds a job, they are able to provide to us, and if they're able to provide to us an employment offer letter or a consent that we can talk to the employer to verify the employment details, we can provide to anyone, and there's no eligibility for this part, we can give them 2 weeks of transportation supports, whether it's a bus ticket or whether it's a gas card for them to get to work for the first 2 weeks until they get their first paycheck. The only, again, important piece, though, to remember is that we need the proof to document. And so an offer letter is mandatory. If they don't have that, then a consent form needs to be filled so we can verify with the employer that they are indeed eligible. I'll talk a little bit about occupational skills training. Sometimes individuals want to retrain or they want to make a career change. We can help them with that. However, there is eligibility and then process that they have to follow. Eligibility for that is that they have to either be on a current EI claim, they have to have been on EI in the last 5 years, which makes them a reach back EI recipient, or clients can access training under the SPE initiative if they're a single parent and the ministry verifies that they are. In addition, if clients have disabilities, they're also eligible and we can help them with this piece as well. In this scenario, we ask clients to fill out a DRENA, which we assist them and guide them with in order to better understand the disability. It's just a disability-related needs assessment that we need to do. We might recommend and advise the client to get doctor's clearance so they can work part-time or full-time, depending on what they want. In many cases, we do send clients for specialized assessments and we pay for that. The client doesn't pay for any of that. These specialized assessments could be vocational, psychological assessments, things like that, to determine from a psychologist if the client is capable of completing training. If client has learning disabilities, we also have specialized assessments for that as well. So it's really on a case by case. Training is a need versus a want. So again, just because they're eligible doesn't mean that they need the training. And how we determine need is we ask clients to conduct a very thorough job search first. And then we determine next steps from there. So that's the occupational skills training piece. We also have many of our clients fall under a general clients where they don't have a disability, they're not a single parent, they don't have, they've never contributed to EI, they don't have the EI eligibility premiums paid, they might be a new immigrant that just arrived, so they would be a general client. And these are the ones that we can't help with the long-term occupational skills training. However, we can help them with stock training, which means short-term duration training. So we can help these clients, if it makes sense for their occupational goal, to pay for training such as first aid certificates, food safe, forklift training, serving it right, cashier training. Typically, these are short-term courses that are under 35 hours of training, meaning they're less than 5 days. So in this case, these general clients are eligible and we can help them with short-term training as well. I'll talk a little bit about self-employment services. Some clients prefer to have their own business and they have a business idea that is really solid. If they have the EI eligibility piece, or if they're a person with disability and self-employment makes sense, we refer them out to this intervention. We usually use the YMCA. They look after the client for a year and provide them support with regards to helping them implement their business plan, ensuring it's viable and sustainable, and to help them with the business launch. They also provide them with a weekly living allowance as well. So that's another intervention. We also have customized employment services. This is an intervention that we can use if the client requires intensive hands-on support from a customized specialist if they have disabilities that makes it very difficult for them to job search. Again, we require that they fill out a DRENA. We would look at some specialized assessments first, and then we would refer out to our customized employment specialist who does a discussion discovery assessment, learns a little bit more about the individual, works more closely, helps to build a discovery report, and then tries to make connections with employers on the client's behalf, and they try to carve or customize a job for that person. Wage subsidy services, again, based on eligibility of the EI or the SPE, single parent initiative, or clients with disabilities. We can also offer wage subsidy incentives to clients so that they can entice the employer to hire them. And Work BC will cover up to 50% of their wage for up to 6 months. So we can do a cost share with the employer. This is a good incentive and intervention for clients that have just completed a training program, their recent grads, their clients that have had EI in the past and have a gap in employment, and they're looking to re-enter the workforce. Job development services, again, is another intervention. We can refer clients to utilize our job developers once they have their resume and cover letter done up properly, and they can show that they're now actively looking for work and they're committed. Our job developers work very closely with them to guide them, coach them, and help them with following up on the applications that they have sent to employers that maybe they haven't heard back from. Our job developers might also have their own connections with employers that they can share with the clients if the connections are within the same industry or field that the client is looking for as well. And of course, if job developers hear of any job postings or any events that are suitable for clients, they do reach out to clients. So we've got lots and lots of interventions and resources for clients depending on what they are looking for. And that's my piece.
That's great, thank you. And there's and I think as I've had the opportunity to hear a little bit from Barb as we go through things about, I'm sorry, just how much is available through Work BC. I guess questions I have, and you were speaking quite a bit about eligibility, Shafana. Your eligibility hasn't necessarily changed because of COVID, but the eligibility may have changed because of the eligibility around EI benefits. Is that true?
So a lot of people are on the CERB benefits, and that is a special type of benefit that unfortunately for many services, if a client is on CERB benefits, they wouldn't be eligible for.
Right.
So it would really have to be the regular EI benefits.
So, and are the changes they're making to allow people, it's just the regular, I think you just answered, but I'm just going to ask for clarification on this. They're transitioning some folks from CERB to a form of EI, but those people wouldn't necessarily be eligible for Work BC benefits. Is that right?
So what we typically do is if they're in that scenario, then we can send what's called an EI eligibility check to the Service Canada directly, just to verify if the client will be going on a regular EI claim or they will not. And if Service Canada comes back to us and says, yes, the client will, then yes, they can be eligible for these services. So we do double check that information.
And I guess the other question I have around this is so what happens if folks aren't eligible for your services? Do you have a way that you can support them or at least direct them to supports?
So do you mean if they're not eligible for the interventions or not eligible for Work BC period?
Either or both.
Okay, so if they're not eligible for Work BC, so that could be someone who perhaps is a full-time student. Mm-hmm. So someone who's a full-time student wouldn't be eligible for a program because they are full-time students and not really, looking for work, or if they are not available for the times that we would want them to be available for. So in that case, they can access Work BC as a self-serve client, meaning that unfortunately right now our offices aren't open to the public, but if in a scenario where we were, they could access our resource room, they could use our printers, our fax machine, they could check out our job board, they could do all of that, they could work on resumes, they can fax things to employers. They just wouldn't have that eligibility to work with an employment counselor, but they would be a self-serve client and still access some of the resources that we have available. So that's the other option.
Yeah, so there is, you're not turning them out into the street without anything. There are some supports there in the short term.
Absolutely.
And I guess that there's two other questions I have. One is around language again. How do you manage the particularly again in Burnaby, so many different languages? How do you work closely with settlement workers and others, or is there a way that you manage language in another way?
To be honest, I've been working in the Burnaby office for a little over a year now, and I know my coworkers haven't really had that issue where we've had to really get a settlement worker involved. You know, we do have English as a second language clients that access our services, but we're able to communicate with them, so it hasn't really been an issue. So, I mean, if it became an issue, then yeah, we would be able to get an interpreter or maybe reach out to a settlement worker. But so far, it hasn't happened. So
I guess I do wonder if there's a gap of people who aren't accessing your services there, because there's so many people who need that kind of support for certain. And then the other question I had was around you were mentioning CERB, and I know that led to a little bit of a reluctant workforce. Are you finding that your employers are coming to you looking for people more now?
Probably Barb might be a good
Okay.
one to ask.
Yeah.
I know employers connect with you and Arson, right, Barb?
Yeah, and the employers that we're hearing from are obviously the ones that are hiring right now, and they're definitely hiring. There's certain sectors that are really active and are needing to hire as much as they did pre-COVID. And the challenge now is a very reluctant workforce, and the employers are wondering what it is that they can do. They have to retain the person, and if there's a lot of what I'm hearing from employers is there's a lot of well, it's a combination, but there's mental health issues, there's daycare issues, there's looking after elders issues. There's an endless list of scenarios that are preventing people from feeling comfortable going back into the workplace. So and I can say that the reluctance is being felt everywhere. I've talked to a lot of other service providers, and their clients are as reluctant as what we're experiencing at Work BC. And I think, Jeff, just to circle back a little bit to the question around clients where English is a second language. We are partnered with Mosaic, and Mosaic has, we have employment counselors, Work BC employment counselors in their centers. So oftentimes any language issue is dealt with at that level. Right. And again, kind of the work on the community relations ends that I've been doing and starting to do again is talking to settlement providers and letting them know we can facilitate clients that are where English isn't their first language. So.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the attendees makes a good point. Likewise, if you see issues that some of these folks are having that aren't within the realm of employment, to be able to refer them back to the the settlement workers in the community would be really valuable. Yeah,
it's a reciprocal. The referrals. The Work BC staff are very familiar with the programs out there. We have. Pre-COVID, and we'll be doing this virtually, we had weekly other agencies in to talk about their services and how they can support a client. So it's a reciprocal kind of referral process for sure.
Great, that sounds great. Thanks, great. Thank you. Well, thanks both of you, and I hope for a conversation at the end. I guess we should get the screen back from you and turn it over to Andrea.
Hi there. I just want to make sure that I can do a screen share just for the website. I'm just going to pop that up right now for you. Okay, so it's wonderful to actually learn about all these different resources for everybody. I'm with the Burnaby Public Library, and we have so many different resources that we can use or share with you. Some of our patrons don't know that there's actually 4 libraries in Burnaby, 1 in each corner. And we're open to the public 7 days a week. So you can certainly come to the library, and if you had a question, we do prefer people to give us a call or to send an email, and we can certainly respond quite promptly for any kind of question or inquiry that you might have. And I know most people, when they think of libraries, they always think of the library as a place for books. And you can certainly come and use the library website to find things and make reservations so that you can come and pick up things. But you can actually also download materials for free. So if you just look on the left-hand side here, we do have books that you can read off the screen. You can download to a device. You can also download books that you can listen to. We also have access to magazines as well. And just right below on the left-hand side, the databases will take you to a range of resources, from learning a new language through Mango Languages, reading a newspaper from one of many different countries around the world using PressReader. And you can even do things like practice your grammar on TenseBuster, or practice for the IELTS test with our Road to IELTS database as well. So these are just a couple of free tools that you can access. Some of them you can just click on it and log in right away. Others will just require you to log in with a free library card, and we can actually make that over the phone. You do not have to be a resident of Burnaby to actually sign up for a library card. There are some resources that are Burnaby resident specific. However, even if you don't have citizenship, if you don't have refugee status, you can still get a library card. We'll find a way to connect you with some of these interesting tools. So just along the top, you can see that we have things for kids, teens. We have some material in other languages as well, things for newcomers and other resources, as well as items that would be of interest for seniors. So definitely we do try and connect with everyone that lives, works, learns, and plays in Burnaby. The other thing I also wanted to mention is just near the top here, is our home library and accessible services. So this is specifically for Burnaby residents. And if due to maybe a disability or illness, if you are finding it a challenge to come out to the library to access the materials that you want, we do have a delivery service, and we just ask that you have, due to whatever your needs are, that you haven't been able to leave the home for 3 months or longer, and we can set you up as a client, and that we can include you in our delivery route. The best thing to do actually is, if you just click on the home library service, is to just go in and give them a phone call, and our phone number is just right here at 604-436-5423 to inquire about how you might be able to qualify for this service. Now, as you go through our library website, you'll actually notice that there are some things that are constants. Just at the top, there's a little red banner for some of our current news. And just on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's a community resource guide. And in this community resource guide is a whole host of different services that are free or low cost for people in Burnaby. And if you click on that, it'll cover things from financial resources, things on food, housing. If you have some health, mental health, physical health concerns, this would be a great resource that you can access. Now, this is also duplicated on the BurnabyCoronavirus.com website in the top right corner under social supports. So you can find that information in 2 different areas. But definitely do take a look. There's a lot of resources that might be of use for your clients. The other thing that we wanted to share is that if you go to the right-hand side here, the library service is currently available. It will let you know that the library is open and accessible. You can certainly come in to use our washrooms. You can come in to use our computers and wireless or Wi-Fi for up to 45 minutes. You can also come in to print. So perhaps you're working with somebody who needs to work on their student loans, or they need to file some other documents and they don't have access to a printer. You can print up to about 10 pages for free. So currently our hours stand at, we're open from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday and Friday. And on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we're open from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're open on the weekend as well, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, and Sunday we're open from 12 to 4. If we are not open, it's probably because it's a statutory holiday, and on those days we are closed the Sunday and Monday. So one other thing that we wanted to share with people is that the library has gone late fine free. So what does that mean? That means that if maybe something has happened, unexpected things. So maybe you had an appointment and you forgot to return something and you're a day late, or maybe you have children and you're not able to get back to the library for another week. Or maybe you've come down with an illness and you're not able to come to the library for a few weeks. We're not going to charge you any late fines as long as you return the item back to the library. We understand for some people having late fines is a barrier, and they don't come back to the library. And it's just so vital for people to have something in the community that is free and accessible. So we definitely wanted to tell people that we've removed fines on people's cards, and the only fees that if you did have something on your account would be just for damaged or lost items. So those ones we do still charge a fee, but if you're late by a day, a week, maybe even up to a month, you won't get fines for that. And so this is for anybody who actually is borrowing something with their Burnaby Public Library card. And so I think I'll hand the mic back over to Jeff, and thank you so much for your time. It's been great spending this afternoon with all of you.
Thanks, Andrea. And I think that's, you know, I guess what I always find is you kind of want to point to, from a provider point of view, you know, if they call the library, you can point them in the right direction an awful lot of the time. Is that true?
Definitely. So sometimes people think that, oh, the library is maybe not an expert on maybe immigration or something like that. And we're probably not, but we definitely can connect people to those agencies or service providers who will have the information. So it's almost like an information storehouse. And definitely we have had people coming in and they wanted to scan and fax. Now we don't have fax service, but we can certainly help them with scanning so that they can still send their information out to the right agency that they need or service provider.
And I know when you reopened, you were saying you were anticipating there would be lots of use of the computers because the times were limited and there were some restrictions. And at the outset, maybe you weren't as busy as you thought. But is it starting to get a little busier? Should the people be letting people know that there's lots of access, or that they might have to wait a little bit?
Definitely. I think we're taking our instructions from the provincial health officer, and so that it dictates a lot of our policies, but we definitely think that right now it ebbs and flows. There's certain times that are busier than others, but it isn't too bad of a wait for people to come in and still be able to access the wireless or to come and use our computers.
That's great. And just in terms of, I know that you right away, as I look at the site, there's some language options, and I know on the BurnabyCoronavirus.com site there's translation of most, if not all of the resources. Is most of the stuff that's available through the library available in a variety of languages?
We do have collections in other languages, definitely, and we're trying to make a concerted effort to add things even for our digital collection in other languages. We do have some staff members that speak other languages, so off the top of my head, Mandarin, Cantonese, Spanish, Korean, Japanese, and there might be a couple others that are represented as well. And if there is a need for assistance, even in another language, we can try and connect you with a staff member who can help.
Super, that's great. Would you got just a couple minutes left here? I'm wondering if Barb and Shafana and Billy would come back for a second. I'd just like to ask you guys some general questions. I think that, I guess what I'm really curious about is if, as you see people, and maybe we've lost Billy, that's okay. What are the biggest concerns that you're hearing from people right now as they come into September? Are there big things that Shafana, maybe you could start when your clients, particularly your people looking for work, what are the worries that you're hearing from them?
You know, I have a lot of clients on my caseload that have kids, and the worry is school, right? We don't know what school, I mean, I have my own kid, I have my own son too. Nobody knows what school is going to be looking like. And I think that there's a little bit of that hesitancy for looking for work. Some of my clients are not sure if they should be looking for work until they hear more about school and whether it's going to be online. Is it going to be, blended learning? So I think for some of my clients, that is on their mind right now, to be honest. The school is really concerning.
Yeah, and Barb, you mentioned, that as employers are coming online and some of the concerns are starting to come back and say they're looking for people, and some of the concerns they're hearing. How are employers starting to think about dealing with that? Do they have a strategy, or they're just trying to figure?
Yeah, I think they're looking for some support around that. And I think I mentioned in one of our meetings, the Board of Trade they had a couple of lawyers come in to talk to employers about how to navigate this. And ultimately what I heard, I mean, nothing is cut and dry, it was very gray, is trying to accommodate the individual in any way that you can. But it's really tricky. Employers are really struggling. They've had staff that have been off for like months and months now, and one employer in particular, specifically, the individual was it was mental health issues around the safety. And the other things that I've heard from some of the other agencies are the clients' concerns around the safety of the workplace. And they're not feeling comfortable and what their rights are from an employment standards perspective. So I'm hearing that the other side of that equation as well. So it's still really challenging times to navigate, for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, I guess, Andrea, it's the same sort of thing. People don't know the library is open, but when they do come in, are you seeing concerns from people? I mean, even if they want to use the equipment, do they have worries about using the equipment, or I guess it's all over the board, isn't it?
Right. So we do have people who have come to the front and asked, are we a mask-wearing institution or mask-wearing site? And so we have left that as the choice for the person who is coming to the library, whether or not they wish to wear a mask. We do regular cleaning at the library, and also too, we do provide hand sanitizer, and there is wipes that people can use to wipe down the keyboards and monitors and scanner if they feel that they want it to be extra clean. So we do have supplies for people, and our washrooms are open if people want to also hand wash as well.
Great. Yeah. And is WorkSafe BC, or pardon me, Work BC, I'm sorry, thinking at all about moving to face-to-face, or are you there's no intention at the moment?
Not at this particular time. I mean, like I said, we have limited staff that rotate in our sites right now, but I'm not hearing anything that we will be operating at anywhere near normal capacity anytime soon.
Yeah.
Right. And I think, go ahead.
No, I mean, I think that goes to the point, for folks on the session, and we'll wind up in just a sec here, but it's, I think that it makes it all the more critical to have some direct relationships between providers in the community and the folks at Work BC and the folks at the library and the folks at the family services, because what I hear is there's really great services that are available there for people, and we just need to make sure that the people who need them and can access them can be linked to them. And I think that the point about linking back to linking back to the settlement workers and the providers, ensuring that their needs are met through that relationship, I think it's just it's a critical piece to it. So absolutely, I really want to thank you for coming and for sharing. And I do want to point out that that all of these resources will be shared to the group. As I said before, they'll be on the website. Now you have the contacts. You can certainly contact these folks directly, and they'll be able to answer your questions. And you've heard how welcoming they are to those inquiries. So I really encourage you to do. And just before we go, I just want to note that in the chat, Jules has pointed out that there's information related to the Canadian Recovery Caregiver Benefit when there are caregiver concerns. So it's in the chat, and we'll also make sure that we share that, Jules. Thanks for that. When we put out the notes for the session, and we'll get the session out very quick. The session notes out quite quickly. Any other questions or comments for folks before we go? Well, that was a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
And take care, everyone. We'll see you all soon.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you.